The mailman doesn't deliver on a Sunday.
If you don't like that, you don't like NBA basketball.
Anthony for three. Bang! J.R. Smith! We just saw men fly. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Cleveland! This is for you!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Coast to Coast. I am Ronan Gaine. Joining me as always, Chris Nambu. We are back after a small little break, and a lot has changed. We're really into the final weeks of the season. Every game feels important now as we look at playoff seeding. Guys are coming to the end of their rookie seasons. We're going to do a recap of give some grades out for the rookies, the major rookies that we've seen. There's obviously some that we can't talk about and some that we're probably going to talk too much about. And then we'll also be looking at playoff seeding. What does the return of Joel Embiid mean? Are the Knicks hitting the wall at the wrong time? Who's going to be the 1 seed in the West? We're going to get into all that. But before we do, just want to thank you all for making this your first listen for NBA coverage. Remember, you're on YouTube. Please subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. You're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave that 5-star review. You do that, and we'll keep producing that content. Before we get into the show, Chris, been a while. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm good. Good to see your face again. Good to be back on the mic talking to people. And as always, good to be getting closer to NBA playoffs. And at this point, like you said, the rookies, excited to talk about them and have a look back on what we're thinking on and maybe see where we went wrong on evaluating these players. I think we always talk about how difficult it is to learn how to scout and accurately project how players will be in the NBA. And this is a good time to realize where we went wrong and learn something new.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into the rookie report card. Where do you want to go first?
There's one obvious place to start, and it's this place where everyone is constantly talking about in the NBA, as we thought. Victor Wembanyama. He's been a legend to the pre-draft process. And coming into the league, he's proven everything that we've thought about him. And I think if we're just doing report cards, we're obviously both going to give him an A+. Notoriously, Ronan's a much harder grader than I am. So he's going to say something like A- because they're not in the playoffs. B+ because they're not in the playoffs, something like that. But I want to put this in the picture of
it's an A-.
A- because they're not in the playoffs. Is that why? Yeah.
No, because I did some other research and I'm seeing why.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to talk about him in the context of best rookies all time because I think that's where this conversation goes. But I'm interested. What's your angle here? You got something to say about Wemby, and I'm very ready to hear
it. He's put up some absolutely insane numbers. Like, he did an absolute job on my Knicks last week. Couldn't even win when Brunson had 61. Wemby had his best game of the year with 40 points.
Threw his ball
boards.
into the stands.
Yeah. Like, it was an absolutely insane performance. He nearly had a quadruple double there the other night against the Nuggets. He was 2 assists shy, 1 block shy of a quadruple double. He's going to do that in his career. The defense is there. Watching him play against Jokic, just seeing the blocks that he had in him and obviously being amazed at Jokic as well. Some of the shots he made over Wemby's fully outstretched arms were just insane too. But you watch some of the plays when he gets bumped and he gets legit bumped and knocked back, but he's still so long that he's able to make blocks or deter shots. It's insane. And I really noticed it watching that game against Jokic. But I looked at his stats compared to a list I compiled of probably the top 10 centers to be drafted number 1 all time. And among those, he ranks 5th in points per game, 7th in rebounds per game. He's 3rd in assists per game, which isn't overly impressive. 3.7, pretty good for a center, to be honest, but tied 2nd in blocks with 3.5. He is 9th in field goal percentage. And at the moment, win differential is -4, which would have him ranked at the bottom. He could improve that, but that's where I think it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all he's the greatest rookie of all time. There's still a lot more that he can do. The defensive side, I believe, is there. And the second that the Spurs are a winning team, he becomes a top 3 in DPOY for the rest of his career. But there's just those signs that and you look at it and you compare him to some other of the great guys of all time. He's had a pretty human overall regular season in some ways.
Okay. Let's break this down real quick. Number one, share some of those names of the people. That's a little nebulous when you're like top 10.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Elvin
Yep.
Hayes, Robinson,
Yep.
Dwight Howard.
Yep.
Who else we got? Shaq.
Yep.
I had DeAndre Ayton in there just because he was drafted over, kind of that sort of way.
Ayton did not have over 21 points per game.
No, he didn't. No, I'm saying like where did he rank?
Name just points. Who name the centers who have more points per game? It's Shaq. It's
Shaq, Kareem, Elvin Hayes, and Robinson.
So just in terms of scoring, for a guy who's not just low post. When the NBA was a little different back then, you got your big guy, and they're getting fed in the post, and they're getting 15 shots, but they're all right at the rim. Those are the names, and I'm pretty happy that those are the names he's next to, especially Shaq. And then you talk about rebounds per game. He's playing like quasi 5 and 4, so I'm gonna give him a break on that. In terms, he's not going to be averaging the most rebounds when he's playing on the perimeter. He's got the ball in his hands as well. He's not just in the dunker spot waiting to catch a rebound. In terms of the field goal percentage, it's kind of the same thing. Like the game is a little bit different then, and the fact that he is shooting 45% from the field is because he's shooting 31% from three. But the fact is he's taking almost 4 threes a game. He is a guy that's pulling up. He's pulling up from three. He's not just taking pick and pops. He's playing like a guard at times out there. So it's it is hard to kind of compare like, like how does he stack up against centers? But he's not.
Chet's doing that too. I know he's playing in a better team, but Chet's also doing that and shooting better percentage.
He is. But Chet isn't rolling off of coming off of screens and taking a shot right at the top of the break. He's not pulling up from three dribbles, sidestep. He's not doing stuff like that. Chet is a much more efficient player right now in his role, and that's why I think Chet is pretty close to Wemby right now in terms of actual impact and value. But I think I want to be a little fair to Wemby. That's why I brought it up, because he's such a different player than what we've seen even in the last 10 years, let alone the last 40 years. So when we go back 40, it's like those dudes would be not even. I mean, these are two different animals here. I almost feel like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Create a new position.
I will say though that the win differential was bad. That's bad.
David Robinson
to not have any winning impact is bad.
That stat is so misleading on a team that just clearly is not ready to win.
Every one of these teams that every one of these players joined was the exact same thing. You can't give him a buyout now. I'm not saying they should be in the playoffs. I'm saying they should be above the Grizzlies. They should be above the Blazers. Maybe they should be close to the Rockets. Above the Jazz, maybe too. Like, Wemby is great, and he's going to be great. The guy is an alien. When you watch him at his best, he's an absolute freak. Don't get me wrong on that. I'm not saying he can't become this unbelievable two-way player at all. But if his impact on this team is that they've lost 4 more games, that's bad.
I don't buy that stat. I'm not going to buy that stat, but we're still going to say A+. And I think the cool thing at the end of the day, when anyone ends a conversation on Wemby and where he stacks up right now to all those other players, is that those are the names we bring up. Like when you just look at best like rookie seasons all time, like Shaq, AI, MJ, David Robinson, those kind of guys, and just looking at how good Wemby has been, he's probably still the best rookie in the last 20 years. If it's not one of those guys, for sure. And kind of the benchmark we talked about was, can he be Tim Duncan? Kind of match Tim Duncan's production. And Tim Duncan averaged 2.5 blocks. Wemby is averaging 3.5. 1 more assist. And again, the shooting percentage, that's going to come up once his shot normalizes. But that it is cool that we can have a whole conversation about where he stacks up and mention a lot of names like that. But like you said before, we would definitely go over on one player. And of course, that one player is Wemby, because he's always going to be the topic. He's always going to be the topic these days. But let's move on to another player that I think we were a little bit lower on because of March Madness. But Brandon Miller,
Yeah.
I feel like we both kind of were a little bit. It felt like he was going to be a player that would take time to develop, especially physically, especially adjusting to defense. We're not sure if he would be able to hold up as a rookie. Not sure if his shooting would be efficient with his shot that seemingly disappeared on him in March. But I'd say he's probably changed my mind the most out of any other player in this class.
Yeah, I agree. I think since Christmas, it's not been like unbelievable barnstorming change, but he's really upped it since Christmas. I think he's made good adjustments. He's shooting 37% from three, which is pretty impressive. I was not expecting that to get up to that number the way he was playing and just the style of his game. Before Christmas, he had 5 20-point games. Since Christmas, he's got 20. I know it's over a longer period, but he's doing a lot more and he's looking a lot better and he's looking like a guy that I didn't think he would. I didn't think he would look this comfortable and this much of a scoring impact as early as he has.
Yeah, and I think the first thing that I started with in terms of being surprised with him is halfway through the season, you see him guarding many positions. We talked about that. Putting him on guards, putting him on wings, putting him on bigger forwards, and he's held up. He's been surprisingly strong for his frame. He's been surprisingly quick for his frame. His hips have actually looked pretty good. Flipping his hips, really getting around screens, fighting through screens, and contesting shots, using that length. And that is not something that we expected. Mm-hmm. And then I think as his scoring has gotten better, as you mentioned, one thing that I've been really surprised with is how he's playing the pick and roll, how he's operating those pick and rolls, how he's getting to his spots. And he's got this level of like craftiness to him that we saw at times in NCAA. But seeing that at the NBA level and seeing that he can get into the paint, he's not just line driving, which I'm sure you're all too familiar with RJ. But like he really has a level of changing up speed and keeping his dribble active, getting that extra dribble in the paint. And just the finishing isn't quite there yet, but he's pretty close to a full 3-level scorer in terms of like what his package is there. So it's not super efficient yet, but in terms of the idea of it, he's definitely a second option, if not first option, next to LaMelo. I can envision a situation in which Brandon Miller is the go-to guy for this team, and LaMelo is, he's the guy that's setting the table for the team. He's working off of the advantage that Brandon Miller creates, because I think he's really shown so much of what he can do off the dribble.
Yeah, especially if LaMelo's ever able to take to the floor, that was
Seriously.
that part of it would help as well. But apparently, it's because he stopped working with his dad and he's wearing crap Puma shoes. See that yesterday?
Lonzo literally said it was because of Big Baller brand shoes that his ankles were like giving out on him in LA.
Puma shoes are apparently the worst things in the world, and that's why LaMelo can never stay on the floor. Maybe he should break his contract and get out of that and see if it's actually true. But sticking with Miller, yeah, I think like you mentioned, obviously it's not all there in terms of the 3-level scoring, but he's showing enough to believe that it is there. And I did not see that coming, especially in his rookie year, especially after the start that he had. And I think you're right. I think if he really develops and his idol is Paul George, he's telling everyone he's the guy you have to watch to be a modern NBA player. Is he going to get to that level? Maybe, but the length he's got, the ability he's got as a scorer, I think he really could take this Hornets team by storm. And like you said, he could be the guy, and LaMelo could be the play setter, and they could be a real 1-2 punch. And I don't think it'd be surprising if his form continues on this upward trajectory, which at the moment looks like it's going to.
Yeah. I really hesitate to make Paul George comparisons because I feel like every time I do that, aka Cam Reddish, it just comes right back in my face. But it's the size and just that like smooth play, that smooth shot. It's there. You can see it. You can totally see that he emulates his game there. And for all those reasons, I'm gonna say B+. I would say B+, mirroring almost A-. I mean, obviously they've had a terrible season. It's the Hornets, and but we'll see where they go next year.
I agree. B+, good grade.
All right, agree on that. Good. Okay. This is one that I was very wrong on. Point guards are hard, man. Point guards are hard to figure out. And Scoot Henderson was a guy that the irresponsible takes that I was at times a part of was, hey, D Rose 2.0, John Morant 2.0. Look at that athleticism. Look at that playmaking IQ. Look at that handle. And he has just been putting up historically bad plus minuses. And the team legitimately plays better without him. He plays better when they lose, plays worse when they win, and it's a little bit confusing for a guy who I thought would really be a part of winning for this team. But that's not to say he hasn't put up flashes. I guess, like, how do we frame a season like this for a guy we had so much high hopes for without reacting the complete opposite way and be like, he's done. He's a bust, or he's not going to be that good. Can we be responsible in how we
let's give him a little bit of credit for kind of the stop-start nature of his season. Let's like kind of give him put a little credit in the bank for him in that sort of sense. Shooting's obviously been a massive struggle for him. 38 from the field, 30 from three. He's still averaging 13 points, 5 assists, which is not terrible considering what you would think of how bad his season feels.
And we're not going to look at the turnover number. We're not going to look at the assist.
No. Stay away from that.
Yeah, that's
like he's had a couple of 30-point games. He's had multiple 10-assist games. Like the flashes are there. He's not. It's way too early to call him a draft bust, but he needs to work hard this offseason, and the Blazers need to work hard to put a plan in place that from the start of next year, he can give the best of himself and they can get the best out of him to really see what he's made of. I think there's pressure on both sides of it to figure it out. They're going to have another good draft pick this year. And I'm not saying they have to instantly be a winning team next year or anything like that. But he was meant to be a big piece of what they've done. But instead, it's been Anthony Simons who's had that bit more of a spark to him. Yeah, he's still a rookie. Yeah, he's still a raw talent. But I think it's been a tough year, and hopefully he's mentally strong enough to just get back in the lab, get working hard again, and the Blazers figure out a way to put him in a position to deliver at his best level next year.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of a classic situation where the game is too fast, and for a player who plays very fast, and his whole film is how explosive he is, how he can get from point A to point B so fast, how he can rise really fast and really play off of that. What's interesting though, that you kind of see that same thing from the Thompson twins, like how their athleticism has translated, but for a pure point guard, that seems to be pretty tough. And I think that's why we see the turnovers. I think that's why we see the inefficiency, but I think that's also why we see the flashes. And one thing I will say, one positive thing that I've noticed about his game, he has a great floater. And that's something that I did not expect for him to have in his arsenal. And that shot, both when he's pulling out, if he's snaking a pick and roll, or if he's catching and shooting, the form is there, the stroke is there, the speed of release is there, the mechanics I believe in. It's very consistent, and a lot of this, I wonder if it's just mental. It's just trying to handle the duties of being a point guard, and how to slow the game down a little bit. Sometimes it does seem like he's rushing. It does seem like he's pushing, but that's all rookie stuff. And that just comes with time, I think. I think for that, I'm not going to write off this season, but I think we do come down a little bit from the lofty comparisons. Like, is this a D Rose 2.0 type of deal that we got going on? I think those, can we look at the season and definitively say, okay, that's not his ceiling if this is not what we're seeing from him immediately, or is that unfair? That's where I'm at right now.
No, I think it's fair to say that. Fair to say that. I'd also say it doesn't mean that he can't get to that level or he can't bounce back next year. He's had a tough rookie year. That's just that's just
injuries,
the facts of it.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if, like, coming into next year healthy, another year to process, that processing speed gets a little bit faster, then things start to change for him, because I'm not too concerned in terms of the good things that we've seen. Let's talk about the Thompson twins. Oh, do we give Henderson a grade? I say I'm not going to fail him. I'm going to say it's a C-.
Okay, we'll be generous. We'll be generous with a C-. Yeah, we'll go.
Well,
we'll go
you just said
not to be too
incomplete.
mean. Yeah.
Thompson twins. Let's start with Amen. Drafted fourth. They're going the obvious order here. Since Şengün has been down, he's been averaging nearly 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. He's not playing point guard really. He's playing almost like a Draymond Green, like small center role. Has been absolutely explosive in the dunker spot, kind of doing the same thing as his brother's been doing, attacking from the corners. Super interesting the versatility this guy showed. Is this a very different guy than you thought he'd be coming into the draft? And what do we think of him?
Yeah, I mean, I guess early in the season, it kind of looked like it wasn't working for him. And I think, did he get hurt or did he go to the G League for a small spell? I think early on, we weren't really seeing that impact from him. But over the last while, like when the Rockets went to their 11-game win streak, he was a really huge part of that. He was looking like an absolute menace on the defensive end, a real pest, getting his hand in, getting just making things uncomfortable for opposing players. And then obviously we got to see his explosive athleticism on the offensive end. Obviously the shot's not there. That could hinder him moving forward if that never really develops. But what he can offer as a two-way threat, as long as the right pieces are around him, then he becomes a legitimate guy that can have a huge impact on the team, not just when they're kind of hit and miss like the Rockets, but when they are a legit winning team fighting for the playoffs.
Yeah, and our biggest concern with him wasn't him. It really was just like the construct of the team and how he would fit in, given they've already got Green, they drafted Whitmore, got Fred VanVleet in there, Dylan Brooks. So how does he mix in? And the fact that you can throw him in there and play him in this like playmaking Bruce Brown role, it's pretty cool. Like rookies are not that versatile. Like the IQ it takes for him to just like the instincts that he has to get to the ball, get to the boards. Same with Asar. The funny thing is that this is not lazy analysis just because they're twins, but a lot of things we say for both players are very true. And I think it's just in terms of how they're being utilized. Asar mostly like a pure wing, and Udoka getting pretty creative with how they're using Amen there in Houston. But that versatility, I mean, he's going to be a long-term player for the Rockets. I think we've kind of, it's funny that we're so impatient with players sometimes that the Jalen Green question, like all of a sudden we just answered it because he had a 30-point per game rush over the past like 30 games or so. So like, oh, okay. I guess that's answered, right? Okay, cool. So I think Amen fits alongside these guys, and that's the biggest thing for me. And I'm going to give him an A- for the fact that he came in as a point guard, and his coach told him, hey, go play center, essentially. And he's done it, and he's done it well. And he's a part of the reason why they're winning. And that is not something you see rookies do at all. So A-, absolutely. The shot is still horrendous. We'll see. That may never be there, but if it's never there, it's fine. He's still such a good player.
Yeah, for sure. And it would be crazy to say that he's been better since Asar's gone down. That kind of crazy to say. Feels like that.
I mean, he just absorbed his powers. He can only split so many powers between them. I mean, yeah, factual. I don't want to copy and paste for Asar, but I love that he's still shooting. I'll say that. That's my additional part. Asar was still shooting, and the form started to get a little better. Don't look at the percentages. Just look at how consistent his shot is. That's kind of the point, is can he consistently get to that form? He's still got that slow release, but his body's better aligned. The movement looks better. It looks like they're really working with him on his shot, and maybe next year we see him become a around 35% 3-point shooter, and that would be a huge win. But I'd say copy and paste my analysis for Amen. He's looked awesome, and then the shot is, I think it may come if he keeps working on it like that.
You hope that if that's what everyone says. Practice makes perfect, right? If guys practice these things, maybe it'll come. It's never going to be the lead part of the game for them, but having that as an option kind of takes them to that next level. And yeah, Sarah, when did he go down? It was early February. I feel like he's been gone down. He was down a while at this stage. It was around that sort of mark that he went out for Detroit, right?
Basically, once they realize they need to catch up to the Wizards in the tank. It's weird timing.
Yeah, and like they are similar players. Like I know it kind of sounds like we're just being lazy, but they are quite similar players. But Sarah was having a really positive impact. He was kind of the bright spark for that Pistons team in what was a horrendous year. They would kind of that record losing streak. They just looked so bad. Cade was still a little bit hit and miss with his injuries and that, and just hit and miss on the floor. Couldn't get into his flow. And Asar was the kind of the guy you're looking at and thinking, you are the only bright spark of this entire team. It's not the new coach we got. It's not the guy we drafted to be our leader a couple of years ago. It's not any of the guys that we've brought in through trades. It was this rookie who was just out there playing the game the only way he knows how, by playing super hard on both ends and trying as much as he could. And it was fun to watch.
Yeah, and poorly, I think, assessed as, even though this is what we saw too, poorly assessed as the lesser twin. You know, the guy who is more of the supportive role player, where Amen's the lead player. But I mean, clearly shows that what he is as a rookie, a super role player, and just imagine how cool it would be if these two twins in the future are both on an all defensive team. Like I could see that, and that would be pretty cool outcome for these two guys. Black, Anthony Black.
I better give a grade. Are we giving grade? We didn't give grade on.
If I give Amen an A-, I gotta give Asar a B+.
Yeah,
A B+.
That's fair.
And I think it's just purely opportunity. What Udoka's doing with Amen right now is I think Asar could probably get pretty close to that. But Anthony Black, interesting pick for the Magic when they did it. I think we understood what they were doing. We were a little bit questioning, are they not prioritizing shooting? Should they have traded down and did that? But they just took whoever they thought was the best player, which I think is always the right move. Good things for him this year. Go.
I mean, I've kind of forgotten about Anthony Black. I don't know if it's just the
That's
success,
the right answer.
the success of the Magic without him, or what it's been. He hasn't really got. Maybe you could say he hasn't got the opportunity. Maybe you say he hasn't earned the opportunity. It's probably a mix of both. Things have gone surprisingly well for the Magic since they drafted him.
Jalen Suggs is good.
Yeah, who knew?
Jalen Suggs is really good, and this, not to veer off too much, but he's really saved his career in terms of, like, we were kind of wondering, okay, look, they just drafted Black. Are they going to move on from Suggs eventually if Black has a big splash here, especially with Fultz and Cole Anthony? But Suggs has been able to stick in there shooting, being a 40% three-point shooter. That just, players improving like that, especially with what he does, amazing. But what we've seen from Black, I mean, it's purely opportunity, so it's tough to grade him. When the Magic players are healthy, they're good. The guys ahead of him in the rotation are good. But I will say the good things I've seen from Anthony Black is that defense. There's so many good defenders in this draft, and he's one of them. Mm-hmm. And he gets out there, he looks like an NBA defender. That size, especially with his hair. Like that was, I don't know how anyone focuses with his hair just everywhere. I don't know how he focuses with his hair everywhere. But he really has great length. He really has quick feet. He can defend, it seems, 1 through 3, and in some situations maybe 4s. But he's very versatile as a defender, and for a rookie, to see that from him and to see him slot in anytime that he gets minutes and produce, peak at his per 36. I mean, his per 36 is pretty good for a reason. When he gets time, he plays well. So tough for guys like that. You just want to see the things come up when they get time, and I think he's shown that. Even though you won't see good averages because he's getting garbage time a lot of times, just getting 10 minutes a game during certain stretches of the season. When he's got serious time, he's actually produced. I'll give him a B for that.
Okay. I'll let you have that. I'll let you have that.
He gives the Magic some flexibility too. So I don't know what they do with the roster. It seems like this has been a great evaluation year for them. They've seen awesome things from all their players, and I think that maybe it makes it even harder to figure it out. But he's proven that he's a worthwhile piece to keep for sure.
Mm-hmm. I want to mention the main one we haven't mentioned, the guy who wasn't actually part of this most recent draft class, but is still a rookie. We just mentioned Czech quickly.
Hey. Just quickly gets, hey, they're gonna be in the running for I think as far as the Western Conference Finals because he's there.
He's really unlocked something within this Thunder team, and he's only going to get better. And I think like sometimes you almost want to doubt him because he's this skinny white guy with kind of a goofy looking head on him.
Mr.
But
Thomas look.
like this guy is a legit baller. He can deliver on both ends of the floor. I think he's only going to get better as part of this OKC team. And you kind of look at it, and I know people are kind of looking at rebounding as being an issue for the Thunder. And I'm interested to see what sort of impact it has on them in the playoffs, because what he brings to that team just unlocks them. They need that spacing that he provides. It's not about getting a traditional big and pushing him to the floor. I think it's more about them kind of finding their Al Horford or someone of that nature to
Yeah.
kind of play alongside of him.
That's literally that's so funny you say that. Like when I think about who's like a guy like who has enough size to like box out and help Chet out and also still not sacrifice spacing. Like I wish they had. Imagine if Al Horford stayed there. That was literally the guy I thought of.
Yeah,
That's
like
literally the guy I thought of.
that's the only knock, that like you just worry that they're gonna get it, they're gonna maybe panic and go for the traditional big, but I don't think that's the case. And like he's unlocked what they can do on the offensive end in a huge way and changed them into a team that were not in the playoffs last year to a team that are fighting for the 1 seed this year. And as a rookie, he's been a massive part of that, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, and we'll mention more about that when we talk about some playoff stuff, but in terms of rebounding. But yeah, he has, in short, a rookie in his first season has transformed on top of what Jalen Williams and Shea, obviously, and the rest of their young guys have developed. He has been a catalyst for them turning into a serious contender, just with everything he's doing on both ends of the floor and doing it efficiently. And the efficiency
And
the
playing in every
defense.
single game too.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why it's really tough to look at like Wemby for his individual talent and just the insanity of what he does. Obviously, he's the rookie of the year, but in man, I mean, if you looked in 10 different drafts, you just pick 10 random drafts, it'd be hard not to pick Chet up there just from what he's done from an impact, efficiency, defensive standpoint. Checking off all the boxes. He checks off every single box, really. So yeah, give him an A. Give him an A plus. How about that? Wemby gets it your A minus for whatever reason. We'll give Chet.
Yeah,
A
I'll give
plus.
Chet my A plus. Yeah,
Yeah, of
well,
course.
that winning impact, baby.
Real quick, Koulibaly. We're not gonna sit up here and lie to you and be like, yeah, I've watched every Wizards game. We've paid attention to his numbers. We've seen the flashes. We've watched his tape, and I will say, Wizards have somebody who's interesting. Like he's intriguing to me still.
He's had a nice run before he went down. He looked like
Yeah.
he was really kind of getting into a groove to finish out the season, and then of course got hurt, which is annoying. But yeah, definitely true.
Yeah, he's not just this. Oh, like this is a defensive talent that he's going to be like this Swiss Army knife defender kind of guy. Like he's got a handle. He can handle it in the open court. He's very fast. I don't think we got that enough on the scouting report of how fast he is. When he gets in the open court, he's a lob threat. He's streaking down the court. Like you turn around for a second when he's in the corner and he's right up there for a lob. Like kind of a little bit in how talking about the Thompson twins in terms of like how they're using their athleticism and their length to their advantage there, but also having the IQ to cut at the right times, to run the open floor, and the way he can get into the paint as well. I think he's got a very solid handle. I think at any rate he's going to be a good NBA player. So picking a guy like that, top 10, I think he stays. I'll give him for what we've seen with the two-way play. I'll give him a B.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's fair. Obviously, I think we would be thinking of him more highly if I think he hadn't got injured, because he was really getting into a good groove when he unfortunately went down.
Yeah, and we won't waste too much time on Jarris Walker. Haven't seen him much. Bummer.
Yeah, remember him?
Bummer. I will say I'm disappointed that clearly he didn't show enough in training camp and throughout the year that he's ready to make this team and get serious minutes. down their playoff run. They got Siakam now too, which complicates things for him. But I thought going into the year that he was going to be a serious contributor. So I guess I'm going to give an incomplete in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Whereas a guy like kind of close to him, Taylor Hendricks, who's now getting a lot more time with the Jazz, he's a guy that's able to show a lot because the Jazz can give minutes. I don't think they really care if they're winning or losing. And you get to see all sorts of good stuff from that guy, the 3-point shooting, the ability to run, that defensive versatility. That seems kind of the theme of this draft is a lot of versatile, good, defensive-minded players, which you don't always see. How about our shooters? Cason Wallace or Grady Dick?
Well, I guess we got to give it to Cason Wallace, considering he's part of the best 3-point shooting team in the entire NBA.
Shooting 42.5% on his threes. And I mean, he just looks comfortable there, getting to his spots. He's not hesitant at all. I think that at times you might have seen that from Dick a little bit, but
I don't think Dick he hasn't shot it enough. I don't think. I think I would like to see him settle for threes more. I know that's not always something that should be encouraged, but I feel like especially when we see him get more minutes with all the injuries and different off-court issues that the Raptors have had, I would like to see him shoot the three ball more. But Cason Wallace he's had a great impact. You kind of forget that he's a rookie. He's one of them guys. He just slots in with this OKC team. They have so many players that have an impact on this team in different games. It's really unbelievable what they're doing in OKC.
And Grady Dick, I will say, so maybe he's not shooting as well. He's only shooting 36% of his threes. Off and on, shooting almost 50% in February and then down to 33 the next month. I think our biggest question with him, though, is not if he can shoot. I think the shooting will come up, but is physically. Is he able to keep up with the physical game of the NBA? And I think he definitely has. He's very active defensively. As a help defender, like he gets in there, he digs. He shows help. He rotates back. He's not the fastest player in the world, but I think in terms of processing speed, as a defender, he is consistently in a good spot. Not perfect. He's not an elite defender. No elite athleticism helping there, but he's very active. And in terms of his shooting, like he's a dynamic shooter. He's not just going to stand there in a corner. He's not going to just stand on the wing. Like he's constantly moving around. Will attack closeouts, and I just like that level of activity from a guy like him. And especially with his size, I think a lot of times we forget that he is a 6'7" guy, so he can attack the boards. He can use his length on defense. Like there's still potential there for more. And I've liked what I've seen, even though the shot hasn't been as good as we've hoped it to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. In terms of a grade, I think maybe like a B for Cason Wallace and like a C+ for Grady Dick. Would that be fair?
Tough. Cason Wallace is doing his job. I'm a nice grader. We know this. I give him B+. B+ for Cason Wallace. B-. It's not fine. C+ for Grady.
Yeah,
we'll agree on that.
I agree with that. What about Keontae George?
Keontae George has been such a interesting season.
Flashy.
Ups and downs. He's a rookie. Ups and downs. So this is the funny part where, if we're talking about Scoot Henderson being drafted 16th, we're like, oh, nice flashes. He's a rookie, so they're not winning yet. But because he's drafted second, or third, and we have all these expectations, we're thinking a lot differently about him. But with Keontae George, I think he's shown that he could be their guy at the 1 for the future.
They appear to believe that he is their guy. Those are kind of the word that's coming out of the Jazz organization, and he's shown that he's got that dog in him. Keontae George, I've liked what I've seen. There's been some really big scoring games. There's been some really big shooting games. Like he's had games where he's knocked down 6 3-pointers and looked really great. Yeah, it's been up and down for him, but it really does look like the potential is huge for what he could deliver, and he's going to get that opportunity in Utah, which is also huge.
Yeah, the smart playmaker, like patient in the pick and roll, and has a good looking shot. And athletically, like I think that was kind of a big knock on him, is not knowing if he had that NBA athleticism, but he's definitely shown that. Mm-hmm. He's not an elite athlete, but he does have the athleticism to hang with the best in the NBA. Like he's not this kind of slow, like lacking burst kind of that was on his scouting report. Like you don't typically see that difference in what we think from an athleticism standpoint before the draft, and all of a sudden he's a lot more athletic. I don't know why he's surprised like that. Maybe just working on his body. I mean, we saw this jump from. So I have to get my opportunity to say Kobe White whenever I can, but some players can surprise you in terms of how much more athletic they can get when they get in the league, just in terms of like working on their body, working on their strength, and maybe that's what happened for George. I think we're getting in the zone of some shout outs and just quick disappointments. We'll just quickly
B
say
plus for Keontae George, and then let's go for the quick fly through.
Overperformers, big surprisers. Jamie Jaquez, Jaime Jaquez, 18th. Pajimski, 19th. Whitmore, 20th. Who was drafted before them? Jalen Hood Shafino. Who? For a reason. Now he's out for the season with back injury. Lakers fans are sick. You imagine the minutes Whitmore would be getting to get there. Pajimski would be getting there. Jaquez would be getting there. That's tough. That's very tough. The Lakers, who have, I think, consistently drafted pretty solidly in the 20s, late teens. Total miss there. I'm giving high grades. We don't even have to say, but high grades for Jaquez, Pajimski, Whitmore. Maybe less so Whitmore, but Jaquez and Pajimski, what they've done for their teams and what they will do in the playoffs for their teams is nothing short of, I don't want to say miraculous, but
yeah, but Pazimski's definitely one. I think he's been hugely impactful. He's really feels like he's really embraced what Steve Kerr and Curry want in Golden State, and I feel like Golden State has really embraced what he can offer for the team. So his fit in Golden State has been really great to watch, and the impact he has been huge. Jaquez has obviously had a hot start. He's kind of dropped off a little bit, but he's definitely going to be an impactful player moving forward.
Yeah. And another guy, Trace Jackson Davis.
Yeah.
Trace Jackson Davis. Arguably, I mean, you want to talk about best defenders this draft. That's what I love this draft, man. Like the more that's why I was really excited to talk about this, because the more and more you talk about all these players, the more impact players you see. So I feel like a lot of drafts were like, oh, we liked that. Like there are some flashes, but there are some tangible, impactful players in this draft. They're not stars, but I mean, you talk about defensive players. Trace Jackson Davis is right up there. What he's done for the Warriors whenever he gets slotted in. And you look even deeper, like Gigi Jackson from Memphis, Vasily Micic. I want to say Vasily is 30 years old. I'm pretty sure he's 30 years old, but dude, just absolutely balling in Charlotte. Then you talk about more defenders like in you got in Portland, Tumani Kamara. And read this story. If you haven't read it yet, definitely read about Duop Reith. He is also an old rookie. I think he's 28, 29, but his journey into the NBA, but he's just put out some good events. But there's a lot of cool stories, a lot of great impact players in this draft. And somehow the Lakers missed on all of them. But just amazing to see how many legitimately good guys came out of 1 year.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back on this draft class as underrated. I think what it's going to deliver and what was expected of it. I think we're going to look back at underrated. Not just, obviously it was talked up huge, it was such a big deal, everyone trying to get Wemby, but outside of that, there's going to be a lot of guys who are going to be in the NBA for a long time, and I think there's a lot more than a few guys that I don't think people are expecting to have to get to the level that I think they are going to reach.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to look back and see if this number holds, but I wonder what percentage of players in the top 20, for example, are consistently in a 6-man rotation. Like either they're a starter or a 6-man. And I would really, I'd go out on a limb here to say that out of all the players we talked about, we'd probably land somewhere around like 80% of these guys will be in a 6-man rotation.
Yeah.
And that feels really high compared to a lot of drafts that we've seen.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's absolutely right. And one guy we didn't mention and we'll just slip in quickly is Derek Lively.
God, yeah. A minus. There you go. Fit. defensive impact. Gosh, this guy's been so good for the Mavs.
Hugely impactful. It would have been great if he had been more healthy this year, but hugely impactful, and it could prove a blessing for the Mavericks that they actually had a bad year with Luka where they didn't make the playoffs, and they were able to draft a player like Lively who can be part of the team that Luka wants to lead to championship success over the next decade.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like that is going to be he's going to be a staple alongside Luka. Like Luka's going to be throwing lobs to him forever, and that's really cool to think about.
Scary too, yeah. No, it's definitely one of the underrated impactful players was Derek Lively. But wrapping up the rookies, let's get to the business side of things. The playoff race, the race for seedings. We'll break it down. We won't go all into a whole bubble of just the whole overall impact. Let's start off with a very exciting race in the Western Conference, the race for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. At the moment, the Timberwolves have the number 1 seed. They're tied with the Nuggets with 53 wins, 23 losses. And then the Thunder are in third with 52 wins and 24 losses. This has been a great race all year. And it kind of feels like everyone is hoping, especially the Lakers and the Warriors, and I think almost everyone in the West is hoping that one of the Wolves or the Thunder get this 1 seed.
You're just worried about it's always the home court, right? Always worried about the home court.
Like, genuinely, I don't think it's that big of an impact for Denver, but it's like, if they do have the home court, I'm like, they can't lose. If they don't have the home court, I'm like, maybe someone could pull a surprise.
I don't think it changes either way, to be honest. I think who's definitely sweating is, if you are falling into that 4 seed and you do have to go through the Nuggets, that's where it gets tough. So Clippers, they're not going to catch up. It's looking like we're probably going to get Clippers Nuggets or Clippers Timberwolves. Do you lose on purpose just to get out of the way? Would you do that?
I don't know. I think the Clippers are the Clippers. Clippers are built to win. The Clippers can't be thinking in any sort of fear way. They just got to be like, right, we got Kawhi, one of the ultimate playoff performers. If James Harden can truly have the impact we think he's going to have when he's this 3rd option or 4th option or whatever, they've got Russ back. Stuff with the Clippers, I don't think are too worried about where they rank. They're going to have to go through the best for where they are at the moment. They're going to have to go through the best. I think they're prepared for that.
Who are you? Has anything changed over the past month? Like, are you feeling more confident about that 2 seed, 3 seed? Timberwolves, Thunder, Clippers. I think it's very, very close in my mind, especially with how good the Clippers have been over the course of the season. And I can't really put my finger on it. It feels like I can't make a prediction right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I put my money on it.
It's really tough. I mean, it's the easy answer is to say you believe the most in the Clippers because they've done it before. They've got Kawhi. They're this experienced team. They know what they're about. But Thunder, like, the only worry I have on the Thunder is literally just it's how big of an impact does the rebounding have, and also maybe is Shea a little bit injured? Maybe they're just nursing his injury. He missed 4 of the last 5 games, and in the other games he wasn't dropping 30 consistently like he had been doing. Is he hurt? Because if he's hurt, that's a big blow for the Thunder. They've obviously lost the last 2 games playing without Jalen Williams and without Shea, which is obviously going to change things massively for them. That's a worry that I would have. The Wolves, yeah, you always want to have Cat in the team, obviously, but they've been surprisingly good without Cat in the team.
Yeah, they've playing well recently too.
They've figured it out. Yeah, you still want to have that option of having Cat, but I believe they've got the tiebreaker with the Nuggets although they have to play one more game. Looking at like this, I think who's going to get the 1 seed. It's between the Nuggets, Wolves, and Thunder. I think the Nuggets play the Clippers, the Wolves, and the Hawks as they're kind of maybe the Hawks as kind of the 3 teams that have a shot at beating at actually beating the Nuggets. Then the Wolves still have to play the Suns twice, the Lakers, and the Nuggets. And then you look at the Thunder, who've still got the Pacers, the Kings, the Bucks, and the Mavs on their schedule. And if that's without a healthy Shea and a healthy J-Dub, they could end up sitting at the 3 seed and it'd be a battle between the Nuggets and the Wolves for that 1 seed.
Yeah, I think the Wolves have won. They won the tiebreaker last Friday. That's determined. So if they stay locked up here, the Wolves are going to stay in the 1 seed. I don't think the Thunder are going to fall to the 4th. But
no, they won't fall to the 4th. I think they'll probably be locked into the 3rd unless Shea is back and unless J-Dub is back and they just get back to normal. But I feel like that could be kind of a theme till the end of the season. They're just going to nurse him and hope that they're at 100% come playoffs.
Yeah, which is a smart thing to do. So I think when we look at it, like this is pretty locked up. The top 4 are pretty locked up. I'd be willing to bet on that. You're probably right. T-Wolves, especially with the Suns playing well, T-Wolves are going to probably slot in at the 2 seed, and the Nuggets are going to keep home court. And then it's just who can deal the most damage? Can they sustain enough damage throughout those first couple rounds for whoever's coming out on the other side to have a chance?
Yeah, that's just the biggest thing. And then let's go down then for the race to avoid the play-in in the West. The Mavs have won 11 of 13. They are 2 games back of the Clippers. They kind of needed to win that game against the Warriors the other night to really make me think they could catch the Clippers in 4th place. They were a game clear of the Kings. They're 1 loss better off than the Suns, and they're half a game clear of the Pelicans. It's still really tight. Like you still feel that could still change so much. Like it could still go the Pelicans as the 5, the Mavs at the 6, the Kings in the 7, the Suns in the 8. Or you could see the Mavs drop into the 7. You could see the Suns or the Kings rise up into the 6 seed. Like it's still so tight in there. I think the only thing that's confirmed, I think the Lakers and the Warriors are going to be the 9-10 seed. The only thing is maybe the game that they have on April 9th, maybe that decides who's got home court advantage in that game. Yeah. That could come down to that. Like the Lakers have another back-to-back this weekend. You have to assume LeBron's not going to play in both of them and maybe miss a couple of other games between now and the end of the season, which makes me think maybe the Warriors can take that 9 seed and have that home court advantage, which might favor the Lakers the way the Warriors have been playing at home. But I feel like if even either the Lakers or the Warriors end up as the 8th seed in the playoffs, I think if they're facing the Nuggets in the first round, they're not winning. They don't have a chance really.
So if T-Wolves stay up there, because I think I agree with that. That's not really a question. That's not an interesting conversation. But if the T-Wolves get up to the 1st seed, can either the Warriors or Lakers, can you make an argument for either of them to win that series?
Yeah. I think especially if we see the impact that we believed would happen without Cat. I know there's talk that he might be back before the end of the season, but what sort of level will we get a Cat that we saw last year, which is really a whole lot of nothing. Yeah, if that spacing proves to be a problem for the Wolves, that's gonna help other teams. That's gonna give other teams a shot. And like the Nuggets just feel kind of perfect. The matchups that they have, the plays that they run is just so hard to stop them. Yeah, the Wolves are an elite defense, which is gonna help them. Being able to rely on that is huge. And Anthony Edwards as your star guy, the way he's developed his game, the way he's reading defenses better, making better passes, things like that. Naz Reid's impact's been huge, but you just feel that the know-how of both the Lakers and the Warriors, you'd say that they definitely got a strong shot if they're playing the Wolves in a 7-game series, regardless of what seed they are.
And then just imagine, like, think about Pelicans and Kings. Which two of those teams scare you the most if you're the 2 seed?
I think the Pelicans, because the Kings, they lost Herter and now they've lost Monk, and that's just kind of dousing their fire just a little bit.
That's tough.
Like Monk has been so huge for them. Anytime any game's gone bad, throw Monk in off the bench and he instantly brings that fire, brings that instant impact to the team, kind of changes the narrative. He gets the crowd going, and that changes things for this Kings team.
What do we think they do with it? I mean, Davion Mitchell gets in there. You obviously got Keon Ellis. You get a different look. You don't get the scoring, but maybe you get more defense. And I wonder if that's what they need, to be honest.
Yeah, like
replacing those minutes with better defenders.
It could work in their favor. Like, defense is the big question mark that you have against the Kings this year. They've shown an ability that whenever they can play defense, whenever the defense is clicking, it's not any sort of regularity, but I think they've won. I think they're like 9-1 when they hold opponents below 100 points. Like, when their defense is clicking, they're winning games. And if Sabonis's game translates to the playoffs and Fox is still doing what Fox does, and their defense is that bit tighter, then you start to worry. But the way the Pelicans have been playing, I know they're on a little skid at the moment. They've lost 3 straight. Does Brandon Ingram get back in? Tough to know. But the way that this Pelicans team is working, and I think just the feeling of Zion in the playoffs, I think that's the team that I'd be more fearful of.
Yeah. Another question. If you are the Suns, who are you more scared of playing? Luka and the Mavs or the Clippers?
Luka and the Mavs. I'm always scared of Luka.
Like the fear.
The fear.
Just
the fear.
70-point first half.
The fear, the Luka fear. Like the Suns know. The Suns have felt the fear of Luka on multiple occasions, as have the Clippers. I don't think the Clippers or the Suns would be very excited about having to go up against Luka Doncic. And the defense has kind of held up over a longer stretch. It has for the Dallas Mavericks.
You sound so convinced.
Kyrie and Luka are looking like the hottest duo in basketball at the moment. The way that they're playing, they're the X Factor team. The Mavs, they're the dark horse team that could cause some upsets and that no one will want to face at all.
Yeah, I'm worried about my Thunder for that reason, because the lack of experience, I think, for this team matters a lot less, because their chemistry and their two-way play, just the way that everyone comes in, knows their job, but they do have a really big rotation that's going to shrink, and they haven't had that all season. They've given a lot of guys a lot of run, which usually doesn't happen in the playoffs. So what would be a bigger failure, if like the Thunder are out in the first round, or like the Clippers don't win a championship? Like, there are going to be a lot of disappointed teams in obviously every playoffs, but because everyone has reasons to win and a lot of moves have been made, like, what's the bigger failure?
It's the Clippers. It's obviously the Clippers. They're in a moment where every year that they don't win feels like one step closer to death for this team. Like that's that sort of way, because of just the age difference and all that. But like the West is just so tight. Like, look at the Lakers. The Lakers are the 9 seed in the West at the moment. If they were in the East, they would be the 6th seed with genuine aspirations of claiming the 3rd spot, like with their record. And
we're always wrong every year about comparing conferences.
And they're in the 9th seed in the West, and they aren't going to get any higher than that. Like that's just how packed and how stacked the Western Conference is. There's just so many good players. There's just so many good teams within that Western Conference, and the Suns haven't totally figured it out, but I don't think anyone's going to want to play them in the play-in. You want to play the Suns in a one-off game? Absolutely not. That is not something that any team want to do. You want to even play them in a playoff series? Yeah, you're going to believe that you're better than them. The Nuggets will for sure be believing they're better than them. Want to go up against that scoring punch of Booker, KD, and Beal? Absolutely not. But yeah, the Suns, the only bounce I'm giving, have you listened to Mind the Game with LeBron and JJ Redick yet?
I I've listened to a few clips. Yeah, yeah, they're good.
You instantly feel like you know more about basketball after watching that
Or
for sure.
less, or less. I felt I was like, I know so much less. For like
I,
a ten
I just
minute
feel like
clip.
I know nothing, but these guys are teaching me. But just hearing LeBron talk about the adjustments the team made with the initial big three in Miami and then the additions that they made after losing in the finals in 2015 with the Cavs, the importance of role players and taking that time to figure things out. That gives me a little bit more hope for the Suns in year two if they can find a way to figure things out a bit better. Probably the same for the Bucks if they can figure out the roster to make a bit more sense with Giannis and Dame. That's one thing that not a big point, but something I it's still a failure if they don't win this year. But hearing LeBron talk about the difference that a year can make and an off season can make gives me a little bit of hope that maybe they can figure it out a bit better for next year. But yeah, the West is just ridiculously stacked, and we're gonna just have great matchups right from the off. The playing
Yeah,
is gonna be so fire, and then all the matchups. Like think about it right now. What do we have? We'll have the Clippers and the Mavs in round one. We would have the Thunder and the Pelicans in round one. We would have the Nuggets facing probably the Kings or the Suns. Like those are some absolutely insane matchups that outside of the Nuggets one, you kind of like these games. There isn't really a favorite in these series. Like this could go either way.
yeah. And I was gonna ask a question for the Western Conference, but I think I'll save it for the East because I think it applies more to the East. And I'll just ask it now, and we can move into the East if
Yeah,
you
let's
want.
flip over.
Um, because I was gonna ask, which team do you feel like their game, their strategy, their strengths won't translate as well in the playoffs? And when I wanted to ask that for the West, I really look up and down, and I'm like, all these teams really have strong like playoff ready
Mhm.
strategies and rosters, and I'm not worried about that translation. And that's not always the case every cut. So I don't even think that's does not apply to the West. If you look out east, I think maybe that's a different question. I know you want to talk probably first about the
Magic and
Rays.
Pacers kind of jump off the page
Yeah,
real quick in that
yeah,
for answering that question. Those two
yeah,
are the ones that you kind of think of. The Magic's lack of offense, the Pacers' lack of defense, and how quick that they like to play, and that sort of element. We don't usually see it translate well in the
yeah,
playoffs. And like talking like both of them, like that the big thing, obviously, Celtics unbelievable. They've secured home advantage. They won their 60th game there last night. They're the number one seed. I still think the Bucks are gonna be all right. They'll be able to stay in the two seed, although they've had two horrendous losses in a row, losing to the Wizards last night and then or 2 nights ago, and then to the Grizzlies last night. Like I know Dame missed the first game, Middleton and Dame
doesn't
both
matter.
missed last night.
Doesn't
Like
matter.
Giannis is still there. Those are bad losses. Then the race for the 3 seed, you're like Cavs, Magic, Knicks. Cavs have still been pretty hit and miss. They're still not fully healthy. Mitchell's still kind of in and out of the lineup. The Magic have actually won three straight. They're kind of putting together a run at a nice time. The Knicks have unfortunately lost three straight and been kind of three agonizing games. Like that game against the Spurs was so tough. Then losing to that game winner from Shea against the Thunder, and then even against the Heat, we were struggling for most of the game. Like they shut down Brunson really well, and we still got it back level with about 4 minutes to go, and then just couldn't pull it out. Like we still got it close after being down double digits. We were still able to claw it back, and then the Heat were obviously able to get the job done. The Knicks feel like they're hitting a wall at a bad time. Um, they face the Kings tonight, and then they face the Bulls tomorrow. Like they've got the Bulls three times between now and the end of the season. They have the Nets, the Kings, the Bucks, and the Celtics. The Knicks gotta find a way to go 4-3 at least in those games. Like they gotta really pick up. They need to pick up a win maybe against the Kings tonight. Probably we'll chalk off the Celtics sake. We'll probably lose that unless we get They rest players coming towards the end of the season. That could happen. The Magic, they've got like the Bucks twice, the Hornets, the Bulls, the Raptors, the 76ers. Cavs have got a back-to-back against LA teams this week. Then they face the Grizzlies, Pacers, and the Hornets. Like there's potential for all three teams to slip up, and at the moment, I think they're all matched up in the loss category. Cavs have got 46 wins, Magic got 45, Knicks got 44. So there's a battle on there to who gets that 3 seed. And honestly, I'm not too worried about where the Knicks finish up amongst that.
They match up well against anybody. It doesn't matter for them, to be honest. What matters to them is just to be healthy, which I don't think is going to happen over the next week.
No.
And
it feels like both guys are down. Like Julius Randle, I think it's clear with Randle, he needed to get surgery on that injury, and he didn't. I think that's becoming very, very obvious. And I think if he came back, it just seems like either he wouldn't have the movement in the shoulder, or any slight knock would pop it right back out again.
Yeah, not worth. I think not worth it at this point, and I think that he would be a big advantage. But I think you guys can still continue doing what you're doing now, which is the defensive intensity, which is running the open floor off of misses, and Josh Hart, just giving him those minutes, like, just adds a different dynamic to your team. You still have Bojan as well. You have a different dynamic there going spacing. They have options to survive that, but I think the Knicks, if they go down to the 6th seed, even if they went down to the 7th seed, I think that their path was still going to be difficult, just given the fact they have injuries. But I think they still can match up against anyone except for the Celtics.
Yeah. That's as simple of it. Does anyone in the East really match up with the Celtics? It always comes back to the Heat. The Heat with this thing right here. Upstairs, the Heat just have that little bit. They're there in the back of the Celtics' minds. There's no doubt about that.
Dropping a quiet 142 points on the Blazers last Friday, and they're just so up and down. Like, they'll hold the Cavs to 84 points, beat them by almost 40, and then they won't even score 100 and lose to the Warriors in the next breath. They lost to the Wizards a month ago, then beat them by 20, and then hold you guys under 100, score 110. And I just never know what to expect from this team until it's the playoffs. But if they're healthy,
yeah, so it feels the health's still not quite there for Miami either. But as long as Bam and Jimmy are there, changes it.
What about our play-in teams? Obviously, the 76ers are a play-in team now. Who is going to be, and this is going to be the even bigger upset, do the Bucks run into a team that, again, causes them to maybe lose in the first round?
Yeah, like it could happen. Obviously, they don't like facing the Pacers. No one likes facing the Heat. The 76ers, still that question mark is there, of course. There's only 1.5 games separate the Heat in 6th and the 76ers in 8th. So this is kind of almost a race for the 6th seed as well. So any one of those three that could end up facing the Bucks in the coming from the play-in. I think the Pacers face the Heat and the 76ers also face the Heat. So the Heat can kind of maybe split those games. You kind of give them the advantage, to give them the edge of getting into that 6th seed, which I think both of the Bucks and the Celtics will be thankful for that. The 76ers are obviously the big one. Embiid came back on Tuesday and looked surprisingly good. He was in a pretty good flow. His shots were falling quite nicely. The movement, a little bit limited. He's playing that huge brace on his knee. The engine obviously wasn't there. He looked gassed in a lot of moments. How much of that can he get back over the next 2 weeks remains to be seen. I'm kind of excited to see them play against the 76ers because I feel like Spoelstra will have it set up to really test all the limits of what Embiid is able to do. If he plays, maybe they won't play him after he went over 30 minutes on Tuesday. But I think like Spoelstra will have the team set up to really test all the range and limits of what Embiid is able to do. But yeah, like the the flow that he was in was surprising to me, and it was really encouraging for me as well. Let's just see how he ramps up over these next 2 weeks, because if he gets there and if Maxey is back, they have to be considered a threat to teams in the first round.
I mean, they just all right. So they have the Heat, and then they have the Grizzlies, Spurs, Pistons, Magic, and Nets. Those are 6 winnable games.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to press the if Embiid's not healthy enough to play those 6 games, he should have rested longer. I would hope that at this point they've timed it perfectly for him to ramp up by playing these games. And if they win those 6 games, I mean, they're 41-35. The Heat are 42-33. It's pretty close. I mean, that's honestly their ticket if they can really take advantage of these next few games. And then honestly, that would be the situation where that would be hilarious for me. If it's Heat and Pacers essentially fighting for the 7th seed, then Heat get it, and it's Heat Bucks first round. I mean, history repeats itself, right? History repeats itself. I would not want to be pulling that matchup out of the play-in if I'm the Bucks, especially with how they've been playing recently. And that's the thing with the Bucks is like I know it's just end of season. Maybe they don't care. They feel like they've locked it up, but that level of intensity going into the playoffs, especially when you haven't figured everything out yet, just concerns me a little bit from the point of who you might face if you draw that Heat matchup and you're not fully locked in yet. Like all it takes against a team like Heat is you lose one game at home, then something like that starts to really turn.
Yeah, I mean, like both the Bucks and the Celtics want to see the Heat as the 6th seed, I think.
Yeah, so we're not worried. We're not overreacting, right? Like that's a fair reaction with the way the Bucks have been playing recently. That's not just like being crazy. I think that's an actual bad
Like
sign.
the Heat have got a mental edge on both the Bucks and the Celtics. That's like, from all we've seen, that's a fact. Yeah, the Celtics are a better team than they were last year. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But they could still be vulnerable. We still don't know about that mental strength. There's still those question marks about their late game execution. We still know that they have a guy, the Heat have a guy in Eric Spoelstra who is so crafty and so smart as a coach that he can throw things that the Celtics probably haven't seen all year. That's a worry for them. And regardless of thinking the Celtics are the best team, they've been so good on both ends all year. The playoffs are different, and they still won't be looking forward to a matchup with the Miami Heat. That's just a fact.
Yeah. General playoff question. Is there any player you think of when you're excited about this playoffs, like having their first moment or really like emerging in the same way kind of how we saw Jamal Murray in the bubble, Donovan Mitchell in the bubble, really coming up big. AD having his moment a few years ago in the playoffs, really put himself on the map in the NBA playoff lore. Is there any player that you think could do that in a bigger way than they have before, or in a way that they've never had before either?
I guess Zion is that guy.
Yeah, I like that answer. I like that.
I've been itching for this. I want to see Zion in a playoff series. He's looked absolutely unbelievable over the last probably month and a half for the Pelicans, and he's that guy that you kind of feel like, I know people kind of question maybe like he thrives more when there's open spaces and he likes to get to the rim a lot, but I think his game will translate well to the playoffs, and he's that guy where we're like, we've been waiting for this. Let's see him go and do it.
Yeah. I have a couple. If we're just looking at the Western Conference, I have a couple answers. One is Kyrie Irving. We have not gotten enough Kyrie Irving in the playoffs over the past handful of years, and we're gonna get it in, I think, a major way. I mean, just talking about that lefty hook shot for the win, like just seeing stuff like that, I'm super excited to see. New faces though, Thunder.
Yeah.
Jalen Williams is getting really his shine now, but I mean, Jalen Williams, talking about games that are going to translate to the playoffs, I think absolutely. And once we get more of everyone gets to kind of see him in those situations, that's going to be really cool to see a second-year player come up in that way. Going to the East, what do we think about Evan Mobley? Is he going to have his moment? He's been doing some weird things recently, some weird stuff. When did he start shooting threes? That was not supposed to happen this season.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of only really happened after the latest injury that he had, and he's going to come out kind of shooting some threes and hitting some threes. Still not any sort of outrageous volume. He's usually he's gone like 1-1 in games, 1-2 in games, 2-2 in games. Like he's done it that sort of way. But it's kind of that's what unlocks this team. That's what gives this team a different element, a different edge, and that's what makes you believe in this team actually doing more in the playoffs than they did last year.
Yeah. I think that's my only guy in the East though. In the
Yeah,
West,
I will be saying Tyrese Halliburton, but he just doesn't look like the guy that he
needs an
was
off season.
the first
He
half
needs
of the
to
season.
rest.
Yeah, like he was before the injury, he was an All NBA guard. Now he kind of feels like a middle of the pack sort of guard. I know that's maybe being a bit harsh, but that's just the way that it feels, and some of that's probably adjusting to playing with Siakam. Some of that's just maybe not being fully healthy, not having that same jump in his shot, not having that same sort of burst of speed to get away from his defenders. That's why I'm not too worried about the Pacers in the playoffs. That's why I still think the Knicks, if the Knicks end up as like the 3 seed facing the Pacers as a 6 seed or something like that, I wouldn't be too concerned just because Halliburton is just not at that level that he was earlier in the season.
Yeah, I actually have an answer for the East. Hame, because the Heat, we have our Caleb Martins, we have our Duncan Robinsons. May I interest you in a dose of playoff Hame Jaquez, because that guy is gonna be their X factor in the playoffs. Just wait, he's gonna have his moment in the playoffs, and there's always gonna be that guy. And you got to decide on somebody that you're gonna leave open, you're gonna forget about, and I think he's gonna be the one.
Yeah,
We saw Caleb Martin go
he could be
supernova.
the low key guy. He wouldn't be like he won't be on probably the same level when we're talking like Zion or J Dub or something. But that low key guy that you
Yeah,
kind of just look at and like, oh shit, who the hell's this guy?
I mean, Caleb Martin was not low key. I mean, he was dropping like 20 points a game, almost, in the playoffs in certain stretches. Like he was definitely on, and I think that same sort of impact, you could see that. But as a rookie, I'll give that a shot to him. Anything else?
We're getting there. We're getting so close to these playoffs, and it's so exciting. And watching over these next couple of weeks to see how the seedings, how they air out, where everyone finishes is going to be so interesting to see. 2 final points, not totally related to the playoffs. One, is our Luka prediction going to come true? If the Mavs manage to get the 4th seed, will Luka be the MVP?
No, it's still
No?
Jokic. It's still Jokic. It would be dishonest to vote for anyone but Jokic.
Okay,
It would.
that's fair. And another bigger one. The Hawks are better off without Trae Young.
Factual.
14 and 11 without Trae, 22 and 29 with Trae. Not Jamal Murray, DeJounte Murray this year, 23, 5 and 6, shooting 37% from deep. He's had big games against big teams. He's hitting game winners. He's had career games. I feel like this year maybe it's not to say that they should get rid of Trae and stick with DeJounte, but I think it's shown us that it's very clear that this duo needs to be split up. And whichever one of them we've heard initially, all the way leading up to the trade deadline, DeJounte is going to get moved. DeJounte is going to get moved. The Lakers are going to come in. The Warriors might come in. And now since Trae's gone down, it's like, oh, maybe they don't need Trae as much anymore. So there's been both sides of the coin there, but I think the clear thing is that they got to split up that duo. Whoever they can get a better package for, I think they need to make the call.
I'll give an obvious stat, a no-duh stat, but with Trae, Hawks have a defensive rating of 122. I want to say that's bottom 3. Without Trae, they have a defensive rating of 116. That's 6 points per 100 better. That's a lot. That is massive. That is, off the top of my head, that's probably a difference of about 10 spots. And that's just with the Hawks being so injured, having time without Jalen Johnson, who has been huge for them defensively. And I can't say for sure what Trae's value is on the market. But when you're trying to figure out how to pivot from this situation, I think you see a vision of a team who identifies defensively and is a little bit more, has that sort of, that using their length, using big wings, and Trae, like the Trae experiment just hasn't worked out. And that's a time for another pod for sure. That's a longer discussion to have. But yeah, I don't know how we got here. But in the playoffs, can you imagine? First of all, in the play-in, if DeJounte leads them to a win in the play-in, and then the Hawks get into the playoffs, and then DeJounte is performing there. And our memories are pretty short in the NBA. We're forgetting the time that Trae led the Hawks, the ECF. That feels decades ago.
Yeah, so long.
Decades ago.
So long ago. And then it's what's happened since.
Yeah.
Playing
all it would
tournament.
take. I think that's all it would take is DeJounte having an amazing play-in and having a handful of amazing games, even if they get knocked out of the first round. And I think that narrative really completely shifts, where maybe this is DeJounte's team. Because the NBA narratives are crazy, and I'm not saying that the front office would think that, but the front office, I don't think, is like, oh, this is Trae's team. I think the front office is like, let's figure this out. That has felt like the vibe since they had the coaching change with Snyder.
Yeah, for sure. And we're like building around Bogdanovich, Jalen Johnson, DeJounte Murray. That sounds pretty good to me. I know Trae's that X factor, that star guy. DeJounte's probably never going to be like a 30 and 10 guy, which is what Trae is capable of being. But
Trae's also capable of giving up 30 and 10 every night. So
yeah, that side of the coin as well. And I think they could get. I still believe they'd get a good package for him, especially if they floated them to a desperate Lakers team. I think they get a good package there. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. But that's gonna wrap up today's episode. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you all so much for listening. Enjoy these last couple of weeks of the season. It's going to be really exciting. There's still some huge matchups to be played. There's still a lot of changes that are going to go down in the seedings. And when that happens, we will be here to cover it all for you. But until then, please remember that we are everywhere on social media at Coast to Coast NBA. And most importantly, remember to take every shot and love every moment.
Peace out.